Thank you, Jim. So, Hancke, I give to you the presentation. Please.
All right, I'll take it over. Thank you. I am, let me do this quick. Okay. I think I just want to welcome everybody. Some members, most members will be here from Chingu, and perhaps we have some from outside. And this is something I've been passionate about for a while. I think one of the main reasons for that is it's something I wish I knew before I started my first Scrum position or Scrum Master position. Pure Scrum versus real world Scrum. I always thought it was the same thing. I didn't know there was a difference. And when people told me it happens differently in the real world, I would look at them like, yeah, I don't think so. It can't be. Because the Scrum Guide itself says if you don't follow everything, then you can't expect the results. Scrum is already scaled down to the minimum it can be. But ask any Scrum manager that is in the world, Scrum Master, and you'll actually get the real story. So I would like us to start with, we would have some people here who have been a Scrum Master for a while, who has had meetings, and this is a focus on them, just for now. I want you to think back about what was your first Scrum meeting like. Was the meeting led by experienced individuals? Were you a young developer stepping in and you had a Scrum Master with years of experience? Did you have a product owner who has facilitated multiple projects, maybe even at the same time? He has a long history of success. Is that the team you were introduced to? With Scrum and all the terminology, did you have the opportunity that everything was well explained to you? Did you understand everything that was said during your meetings? Were questions encouraged? Were questions answered? And I guess something very important as well, if you are stepping in for your first meeting, did they encourage you to speak? Did they ask your opinion? And then what would the time box have looked like? Every meeting has a time box. How it happens when you reach the end will differ from depending on your team's experience. I want to take a look at the other side of the coin. So what if everybody was new? What if it's the Scrum Master's first ever Scrum meeting? What if the product owners new? What if your developers are new to Scrum? It's everybody's first time. Perhaps it was a reading session. Somebody just read through the Scrum Guide to tell you what we need to do. Was there one voice throughout the whole meeting? And then what happened in that meeting when you hit the time box? Did everything end? Did you ignore the time box? So the question is, what was your first meeting like? So agile leaders, I want to tell you, you have the influence here. You have the powers rest in your hands. You're going to sit here in Chingu with people who are completely new to Scrum. And you have the power to change what they will say when the question gets asked, what was your first Scrum meeting like? I would like to share just a short part of me and how my story looked. As I said in the beginning, I didn't know that there was a difference between real world Scrum and pure Scrum. A long time ago, a very long time ago, 2 voyages back. This was my first introduction to being a Scrum Master and helping a team. I was really nervous about the mistakes I would make. Am I going to say everything correct? And then the first meeting started, and you realize there's no time for me to panic about what I say. There's so much chaos. If you're in Chingu sprint 1, guess what? It's going to be chaotic. Nobody knows each other. Hopefully somebody sent a message saying, "Hi everybody, this is who I am and this is what I can do." If not, then you might go a day or two with nobody saying anything. So week 1 is you can completely forget about Scrum. This is just about a group of people pushed in a room and they have to get along. So I was a first-time Scrum Master. And there were honestly moments where people would ask me a question: who's responsible for this? I think this exact example would be, who was responsible for the product backlog items? And my instant answer was, the product owner is responsible for the product backlog. But then they asked, okay, but who's responsible for the items on the product backlog? Who creates them? And I was honest and I said, I'm not sure. I went into Google. Google gave me people's answers, not the Scrum guide. I went into the Scrum guide and I could not find the answer. There was not an answer in the Scrum guide with reason, and that can be explained. It was my first development cycle as in a Scrum team. I had no idea what a product backlog looks like. Our product backlog was not pretty. It was not something you would want to show to a customer. I did not know what it should look like. I just had an idea that this is not optimal, but we got the project done. And then another story of just how you grow. This was my second voyage. And in my first voyage, I spent a lot of time explaining all the terms. What is the definition of done? Explaining what each meeting is for. I started voyage 2, completely new team. And my brain said, I already explained it. So we came together at the end of a meeting in the first week. We were busy organizing everything that we need to set out to do. And the question came up, all right, definition of done. And we spoke as a team. Everybody would create a portion as homework in a way. Go home, create your portion of what you want in the definition of done. Tomorrow we'll get together and we'll formulate it as a team. And that was the end of the meeting. Go back, create what you want in the definition of done. I told everybody goodbye and I muted myself. And before leaving it, I just kept it there because I saw some members were still in the chat in the meeting. And I just overheard the conversation. The one developer saying to the other, do you know what is the definition of done? Do you know what we're supposed to do? And neither of them knew. And I took a moment. I was like, I didn't do my job. And it really felt like I failed in a short way. And I hopped back in because I haven't left the meeting. And I said, hello, everybody. I'm so sorry. This is on me. I should have explained it. I had a short explanation of what the definition of done is. I told them I will explain it to the whole team. But also, if you want to read more, I shared an article. That was probably not of the best moments, but it's a small mistake that I made. And I had to learn a lot and lean on my support lines. I had a very good friend who was a Scrum Master. He's been a Scrum Master for a few years. I called him maybe not every day, but frequently enough that I bothered him. And I would ask him, what do I do? How do you do this? And he was like, yeah, welcome to Scrum. I'm glad you're here now. It was really just like, yes, I know I wanted to have these problems, but it's difficult. So what do I do? And he did the Scrum Master thing of asking questions. He asked questions. More than that, I have a fantastic coaching circle. And if they could share their stories about how prominent and determined I was to follow the Scrum guide, to say, no, this is the way we should do it. They were kind enough to show me grace and just help me ease in the way of this is how we look at these situations. I had a great support system. Then the question might be, what is your support system? Each team gets a Voyage guide. You have your Chingu admins, and trust me, I called on their button a lot. You have agile leaders, and trust me, I have a very long conversation chat with Mariana just about all the problems I faced. They are there for help, even if you doubt yourself a little bit, to go to them. These are available to us all inside Chingu. Agile is worldwide. You have a worldwide community that wants to help you and support you, who wants you to succeed. You can go to any agile community, and I would bet on it that they would be welcoming and would want you to grow. Agile is one of the best communities to step into and say, I want to learn. I had that inside a function where we all came together. I was the new kid. I was nervous, but brave enough to put up my hand and say, I don't know. The amount of people that surrounded me and said, ask questions. Where do you come from? How do you want to grow? What do you want to know? It's a community of people that want to help. It's a community of people who want the best for you. Agile is probably the best place to put up your hand and say, I don't know. I want help. Then I want to run through scenarios. Scenario 1, it's your daily stand-up. 15 minutes up. What are we going to do? And then I can add more things in. What happens if 5 minutes later into the daily stand-up, 2 or 3 members only got to join in? So it was only you and one other developer sitting there for 5 minutes. What happens? Do you extend the time, or do you keep it at the 15 minutes the meeting was set to? If you reach the end of the time limit, what if somebody was still busy speaking? Do you cut them off and say, sorry, end of the discussion? What happens if people still have questions? There was a story I heard from somebody who lives literally down the street, and she's a developer. And I told them how I'm in Scrum now, and I'm so excited about it. And she said she doesn't like Scrum. I was honestly taken back because I think Scrum is amazing. And she said she doesn't feel heard. Her Scrum Master is very strong about what stands in the Scrum guide. If it's the end of the time box or the time frame, the meeting's ending. And she's sitting there with questions, still more things to add. How does that make her feel heard? There's a lot of this going around. So then you have to ask yourself, what is the right decision to make? And that will differ in all the scenarios. A good thing you can do that was taught to me by my coaching circle is, do you ask permission? Ask permission. All right, we've reached the end. What do we want to do? As a Scrum Master, sometimes you think so much of the responsibility is on your shoulder. All you actually need to do is ask the question to the team. This is a Scrum team. You say where we are standing now, and you say, what do we as a team feel is the best thing to do next? You have the knowledge, and you just make sure everybody keeps to the best of your what you think is the best for the team. You think, what are we going to do next? And if you ask the team, do we extend this with 5 more minutes? Do you think it's that valuable? Or do we say goodbye and we have a one-on-one discussion for those who still want to talk? We take another scenario. In Chingu, you might find this happens quite a bit. I'm late. Perhaps one more. They don't show up. This is not going to be easy. This is something you will face. We are in a environment where it's volunteer based. Most people have a day job and do this. Doing this in their spare time is already taking a lot for some people. So what happens when somebody's late for the first time? What happens if somebody's late for the second time? Do you make a judgment? Do you say, oh, this person's always late, they don't care? We don't know what's happening. And just a reminder, if they tell you, sorry, my transport was a little bit late today, I've made that mistake and assumed that as the truth. We have no idea what's going on their side. For people perhaps running multiple jobs, pushing this in because they want to grow to the next thing, be very sure not to make a judgment. Then there's another example. And these are questions, and I don't have the answers. Everybody will have to make the answer for themselves. What happens if everybody's late and you're sitting there with one other member? Do you continue the meeting? Do you just have a small conversation where you build relationship? There's a lot of decisions which you will be faced with and have to make decisions on. Another scenario, which I have faced more than once and I've heard of multiple times. There will be a one-man captain. You will find yourself with one developer who's just not afraid, who says, I can conquer the world. And you as a Scrum Master, you have to sit there and think to yourself, what's the best for the team? And there will be hard questions. What do you do if there's one developer who speaks for everyone? Is it a question of, okay, this person is brave enough to speak, that's great, I have one developer speaking. Or do you ignore the others who are more silent? Is 6 weeks enough to encourage those who are more silent to hear those voices? What happens if you find that only one developer is doing all the work? Do you say, okay, we will together kind of push this project along? Or do you say, please slow down, I want the others to work on this project as well? Chingu is a very fast-paced environment. There will be so many scenarios that gets put in front of you quickly, and it will just help you grow. The fast-paced nature of projects having to be finished in 6 weeks will help you grow or help the team grow. And with that, I think it's important to know, if you don't have, well, let's define successful according to Chingu. Successful according to Chingu is, we didn't give up. We learned something. This is not, we have an awesome website, everybody wants to use it. This is, we didn't give up and we grew. We know more than we did at the start. I quickly just want to talk about like the main lessons I learned. And I really feel going through this, it will help, because it took me a while to learn this. Meet at the same time, every day. We changed to accommodate others, and it created so many confusions. Our daily Scrum, our sprint planning and sprint reviews started on separate times. The amount of confusion we had in our group was just on the next level. And I learned from this, always start on the same time. I'm not saying this is correct, but what my experience has taught me, everybody now knows what time the meeting starts. There's no excuse to say, I didn't know when the meeting starts. I'll actually take this one further. In my experience, and it's not easy, don't hold your important meetings on a Friday. I would say a Monday as well, but definitely not a Friday. Everybody wants to go out on a Friday. Fridays are when things happen. If you hold a big meeting on a Friday, you can expect that people will not show up. It's just bound to happen. Then I want you to be extra agile. Especially with Chingu, you are in agile, but you're going to be extra agile. You are going to go against a lot of what the Scrum Guide says. And that's something I would never have accepted. And you will find out quickly that if you follow the Scrum guide 100% at the start of a voyage, there's a high chance your team is going to struggle all the way through, because you need to have grace. You need to have a lot of grace with your team. This is a new team, completely new. They don't know each other. Perhaps you have a great team that actually worked together before. And be sure not to shunt them off from Scrum to say, this is what the Scrum Guide says we should do. That is wrong. The Scrum Guide says we should do this. Ask them. That actually brings me to this one. Ask a question. If you're going to have to say a lot as a Scrum Master. This is what I found. You'll have to be a voice a lot. And instead of saying what to do, just at least start with a question. Ask, what do they think? How do they feel about this? And then you can perhaps say. And the more you grow in your experience and your relationship with the team, perhaps ask more questions. And then, if you really need to, you can start to get them to do stuff. And this is to the next point, pushing the sled. There'll be moments of silence in your team where everybody's just looking at each other. You're going to sit in a meeting and ask a question, and everybody's going to be quiet. As the Scrum Master, people will look at you as a leader. As a product owner, sometimes you take that role. Perhaps there's a developer with that hat on. You are going to have to push the ball forward. I want us all to remember that Scrum teaches us to be honest and transparent. It teaches us to be agile. I think it's really good not to stand on a podium as a Scrum Master saying, I know better and I'm always right. Be honest with your team. Tell them you're new. I have not been in a Scrum Master for long. This is my first, second, third voyage. I'm learning with you guys. You can be honest to make them feel better and say, I made mistakes as well. I was wrong in that scenario. You have to make yourself human sometimes. And then if you're anything like me, you need to have grace with yourself. As a Scrum Master, you're responsible for the efficiency of a team. So if your team is not talking, I found myself often blaming myself. What am I not doing right? If your team members are not showing up for the meeting, I ask myself, what am I not doing right? And I could not get the answers. You need to understand this is a learning journey for everybody. And it's not about success at the end. It's about, did you grow at least in one step? And if you did, then you did your job. If your team members grew at least a little bit, if there's one goal that they achieved, maybe that is, I want to speak once in a meeting. Then you did your job if you encouraged them once. It's not about getting 100% with the project and it looks pretty. It's about, did I grow and achieve what I actually set out? Chingu is not here for you to develop fancy projects. It's here to develop your soft skills. The question might be asked, are we then agile if we do so much that's not in the Scrum guide? If we do so much delegation instead of asking others what do they feel comfortable with? And I will answer with, we are all agile. Agile is a journey. It's not a race. It's not you're going to win. It's continuous improvement. It's one foot in front of the other, learning, growing. And as you grow, you know more, you can help more. And if you're here in this meeting, if you're in Chingu, you are part of the agile journey. You are agile. It seems daunting at first, but we all learn together. So thank you for your time. And I hope I encourage you all to take a step.
Thank you, Hank. Does anybody have any questions for Hank? Please feel free to. So Alex has a question. Go ahead, Alex.
Oh yeah, so when you're in, have you been a Scrum Master at any other organization other than Chingu?
I I have not put on the Scrum Master hat in a paid occupation before. No.
Okay, okay. Because there, I have several years ago. I mean, very short bio here. I've been in the Scrum for many years. Was a Scrum Master for 4 to 5 years, and then now I'm in a 3 year gap where I've not been a Scrum Master. I'm trying to get back into the Agile world. Um, but the main problem I ran into was that the team was on board doing Scrum. You know, the developers, the product owner, the Scrum Master, of course, and then maybe like the supervisors, everybody. But the organization as a whole was extremely skeptical and even opposed to the Scrum framework. And they would a lot of times like, oh, something went wrong. It must have been because they're doing Scrum um, kind of attitude. Have you run into anything like that? And if so, what would you do to remedy that situation?
Thank you for the question. I think that's when you can really look at what Scrum was created for. And this is going to seem hard. Or I see it as this. Your job as a Scrum Master and the product owner's job is to protect the developers from what's happening in the organization, what's happening outside their bubble. And if you look at how many organizations say, no, it's because of this, you need to do this, a lot of people want to interfere. You need to create a safe space where they can develop. Scrum works. That's absolutely 100% true. Scrum works. And I think over time, there will be a point where leadership can't deny it. If you go after building a few successful projects, it's not going to be easy. There will be times you failed. And there's something I'll add to that. Over time, you'll have success with your team. And then there's no denying it's Scrum's fault because then they're ignoring the statistics. And something that just popped in that's very important then, as an agile leader, you have to learn to speak with two voices. You don't bring what happens in the Scrum team and say all the vulnerable things that are happening wrong and take that to the manager or to the CEO or general manager. You speak with a different you're speaking to a different crowd. You're talking about how the team is growing. You don't say, oh, Jim was really struggling this week with his personal life, so we stepped up and helped. You could really see how the team helped each other where we were falling short. And that speaks of a good way instead of somebody seeing a weakness and one we need to solve. So you'll learn to speak in different voices. And as you kind of grow this leadership of people who just excel and are better, it will infect out. Infect is probably not the right word, but it will spread out. Your team will start to help other teams. And over a long period, you'll kind of see how it grows. And you just have to do your best to protect it and to help that grow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Adelwal was next with a question.
Yeah, thank you. My question is, you literally almost answered the question. It's all about psychological safety. Like you said, protecting the developers from external distraction outside the bubble. But at times, the team may not be able to really have a full grasp of that protection. And they may want to feel that maybe you are overprotective. So in that situation, how would you be able to manage it? For instance, I know it's just a simulation though. If, for instance, if we have in quotes a stakeholder who reached out to one of the developers, advising that we need to adjust one or two requirements to meet a definition of done, and you got to know that that information was shared. How would you be able to handle that? Knowing fully well that you are working with the team to make sure that they're effective, they are focused, and they are working within that short sprint. How would you be able to handle that kind of situation?
That's actually a tough question. I have to reflect. And I think there's one way you can always step in. There'll be different Scrum Masters with different personality types. And nobody can deny you of who you are. You can fully go in and say, you might say I'm overprotective, but that's who I am. I want to protect you. And perhaps sometimes it looks like I do it too much, but I'd rather do that than fall short. It's me. And I hope you accept that flaw of me, that I care too much. I don't want something to happen. If you can kind of just make yourself smaller, it makes them always want to bring you back up. No, you're doing a great job. I'm really happy that you actually care that much about us. And then again, you can kind of go into what Scrum says with, I don't want you to take responsibility of what the stakeholder said. The product owner is responsible 100% for what we create. It's his responsibility and his head on the line. If we start taking instructions from the stakeholder and we start to do things outside of what the product owner is supposed to know of, then he loses control. And that is literally what he is there for. He is there to help us. He's there to be responsible and to know of everything. And then you can kind of just ask the question back towards them. How would you feel it if in your code, in the section you work, somebody else did something they didn't tell you? You would want them to ask you because you're responsible for it. How would you want them to, if they have to make a change? How would you want them to handle that? I really hope that answers. Okay.
Okay. Alexis was next with a question.
Okay, so I have two questions. One, you said meet at the same time every day. Considering that people have different time zones, how did you come to that decision? Was it majority, even if it doesn't suit everyone? Yeah, how did you navigate deciding on your meeting time?
There's two apps that Chingu share with you about how you can create what time best suits everybody in a day. And in there, the team will vote. All right. And you can see over the majority of most people are available during 6 and 8. I've worked mostly with teams in Africa. Everybody could meet at nighttime. So 6 and 8 p.m. is where was the range. And some days people will not be able to meet at that time. However, the majority of days were capable at that time. And if you think about, especially your big meetings will fall on certain days. And those days are actually the most important to have that time slots available. The rest are 15 minutes. They can do their best. And I think it's more important to create. So I really might be wrong with this. I have learned it's more important to be consistent with the time than it is to try and accommodate everybody by saying, okay, we're going to shift a little bit up, a little bit down to accommodate everyone. You will find that your team, somebody will share. It's inside the Chingu handbook. The first person who's there needs to try and set up a team meeting. And we had actually in both my voyages a tie about which slot would work best. And we had a vote. You can make the call, but the Scrum way is you ask the question, hey, everybody, these two time slots seem to match for everyone. And there's also a great thing, Hammer Time, where you input a time, copy and paste it, and that time reference will be the same. It will showcase the same time, even though it's different. So for us, it will be 6 p.m. for Nigeria, it will be 8 p.m. and in Russia, it will be 9 p.m. But everybody sees the time. And then they can vote about, okay, no, this slot works for me or that slot works for me.
Okay, thank you. My second question was regarding the daily scrum. Let's say only 2 people made it on time. You're 13 minutes in and no one else has arrived. Do you reschedule the daily scrum? Do you just have the next meeting the next day? What happens then?
This is what I really learned a lot. And I would give you one example. If it was just me and one developer, I would just ask them. I would sometimes ask them, how's it going? And then they start to tell me development stuff. I'm like, that's not what I want to know. How's it going with you? Because it's just us. I don't need to know about the development. And then more people would come in and I'll start to ask more appropriate questions. Is there anything you need help with? Is there something that was a blocker for you? What is there that I can help you with? And then perhaps they say, I don't need your help with something, but I'm struggling with this piece of code. And then the other developer would chip in. And we went that way for 13 minutes into the 15-minute time box, and the one developer joined in. And we're like, we were just saying goodbye. It really happened. And we were like, okay, we'll let him give an update quick, how things are on his side. And we reached the time cap and they were still talking. And I had to make a choice. And at that time, they were like joking a little bit and talking. And I made the decision it's more important to build the relationship and have them talk than to say, hi, everybody, we've reached the time end.
Okay.
I was a lot more gracious and focused on building relationships and working as a team instead of we're going to try and stick to the Scrum guides. Something you can do is just when you reach the end to say, everybody, it was great to have you all talking and it was really great to hear you share. I loved how the passion is really in this team. We went over our 15 minutes and I just really want to ask you all, I know it's hard, but try to make it on time. I want to give you as much development time as possible because there's not a lot of time in the week. So it's really there for you to give you as much time to develop. You'll have to make a lot of judgments, quick judgment calls, and you'll learn them as you go.
Okay,
Thank you for your insights.
okay, Jim, your question, please.
Oh yeah, thank you. If it's all right, I'd like to just add some observations to some of the questions that were asked. Alex asked about stakeholder buy-in and actually active stakeholder opposition. Something I've found in the corporate world is if you try to implement Scrum, 100% of Scrum immediately, your chances of success really diminish. Places where I've worked that it was successful, we treated it as a process that lasted from 12 to 18 months. And we didn't just educate the development team, we educated all the stakeholders. And that was a pretty intensive process. It takes time. We also phased in elements of Scrum a little bit over time rather than trying to do all of it at once. And what we found is when we did that, when we made our stakeholders partners in the process, we had a much higher rate of success. Because Scrum is, for it to work best, I mean, it can work without your stakeholders understanding it. But my experience has been is it's always worked best when your stakeholders buy into it and they understand, what it does for them. And then Adewale had asked, about protecting the team and not being overprotective. An approach I've found is if everyone pays attention to what others are saying, become an active listener and understand everyone's perspectives and their opinions, and then engage each other as partners to find a solution rather than opponents. Um, I've just found that to be a much better approach, and it reduces a lot of friction within teams and even between teams. Um, and then finally, to Alexa's question about coordinating times, um, this is something unique to, well, actually, it's not unique to Chingu. Uh, but if you set up your real-time meetings at the best time you can find, um, also pair that with some type of asynchronous status posting. So whether you're using Discord or Microsoft Teams or Slack, in your team area, set up a daily stand-up, thread, if you will, or topic. And if someone can't make the meeting, they can post their status there with the 3 daily stand-up questions. And then likewise, as a Scrum Master, you can post a summary in that channel of, what did you discuss at the current day's daily stand-up. Now that's a lot of work. That doesn't come free, but the value that it provides is it provides this kind of common view and understanding of both where are we at, where have we been, and where are we headed at a particular instance in time. So thank you. That's all I had.
I would just also like to address the question. So Adewale said in the chat about a working agreement. I think that's a great thing. And I've heard of teams that have great success with it. Really, if you can get your team to create it together. And I think during your first period where you meet to say, all right, everybody, there's a lot ahead of us, but I want us to just come together as a team. What do we want to achieve? And then you can, in what I would think is, say what each person's goal is for why they are joining, because then they know why they want to do it, and they also know why others want to do it. And then you say, okay, I think to best for us all to accomplish this, let's create a working agreement together. What standard will we keep ourselves to? I think that's a great idea, and you can ask, but there's been a lot of successful teams that do that.
Okay, but Viral has also a question. Go ahead.
Right. Thanks. I just want to say, Hancke, first of all, thanks so much for such an amazing presentation. I've been doing the Chingu for a few voyages now as well, and as you were talking about, your experiences, I was reflecting on my own voyages and like how they went. And honestly, like whenever I had a really good voyage, it's because we really abided by, what you said in this presentation. We believe make sure like we didn't Scrum, but we didn't follow it like um by the book, and I kind of, we were flexible in how we did it. So that being said, I realized one thing that I don't think I saw in your presentation is like the metrics and how you measure Scrum, like the story points estimation, the burn down charts, etc. So since in a voyage we only have 6 weeks, which at the beginning seems like forever, but then when you're having fun with your team, it seems like only 5 minutes, right? So given you want to do Scrum properly, but then you only have 6 weeks to do to do Scrum, what's your opinion on incorporating like metrics like the burn down chart, sort point estimation? Is it possible to teach all this within the 6 week time frame? Or no? What's your opinion on that?
I can share with you both my voyages. We incorporated it in both, and it went very differently. In our first voyage, we had a really solid development team. Everybody was growing really well. And I made the call early without consulting the team, so that was on me. I just thought it was too much with everything that needs to happen to tell them about another thing, another layer they need to add. In sprint 4, somebody said at the sprint retrospective, they said, what about story points? I've read about it, but I've never used it. And so as a team, we kind of spoke about what do you I explained what it is and what it's used for. And we had members who were for it and members who were against it. And as you can think, the reasons for it is it's something you can expect in the real world. We are a really strong team, so this is a great time to learn it. And the reasons against it is, let's not add something else on this voyage we have now. We have a great momentum. I don't want to add something else that can really slow us down. Everything's going good. So we had a team vote, and majority voted that they wanted it in. So in sprint 5, we added story points. It was an explanation of how it would look, and I believe I used dogs as points, dog sizes as points. It might have been the t-shirts, but I think it was the dog sizes. And it was just a simple thing of, you know how big this is, you know how big this is. And we used that, and in sprint 6, we saw how many story points we used in sprint 5. So we said, okay, we can roughly see that we use this much. So we actually went way above the story points, and that's actually where it became useful. And we could say, all right, remember, guys, we did not finish the previous sprint, but the story points were only 25 points. We're currently sitting on 30 points, but we didn't succeed in 25. And you estimated that it's this size. So that was an opportunity for them to use it. So it's a really good thing if you feel you have a team that's comfortable and really have good momentum, to say, I would like you all to ask you if you want to add another layer. This is an opportunity for you to learn, for you to grow. And in the end, it's your choice. My other voyage, I decided to do it in the start. As a team, we said, this is something that really becomes valuable over time, since it will kind of fluctuate up and down. Also, as the team learns to use it, and as just different sprints take place. And that voyage, the team fell apart. We had, if you remember my project presentation, we had developers leaving and coming. It was a really chaotic period. We started development in the 4th sprint. So we did create story points in the first sprint with the developers we had, but everything fell flat. And at that point, I was like, I'm not going to bother with story points. We are struggling just to keep the ropes on. And that was also the call that was made. It's a great thing to learn. And I can promise you, at least they stepped away with, oh, I have an idea of how story points work. I did it once. Sometimes you'll have to make the call also, it might be too much for my team.
Thanks so much for that. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Also, like I said, as you're speaking, reflecting on my past voyages as well, and like how they went. And sometimes they do feel very similar to yours. Maybe other people have had the same experience. My last question is that for the stand-ups, like I know during my voyages, given it was kind of hard, as you said, everyone has their own life. We weren't able to meet every day 15 minutes in person or virtually. So we were using the stand-up bot that the Chingu has. So wanted to know, did you guys actually have the time to meet that 15 minutes in person every day? Or did you incorporate the stand-up bot to just kind of give the daily updates every day, and you can get the updates, but you don't have to take the time out to meet virtually? How did you handle that?
Then I would tell you this. Each team, it would differ. And what is the point of the daily Scrum? It's for the developers to come together and to look at how far they are towards the sprint goal. What is their momentum? Do they think they can accomplish it? Is there a roadblock in their way? Do they just quickly need to create a moment? And more than that, it's also the developers coming together, seeing each other, hopefully with the cameras on, and having just a short discussion, which build relationship. That's good. Some teams are fully in Discord just typing messages. So if your team is one of those that feel more comfortable behind a keyboard, and they look at the daily stand-up that happens with the Titan bot, and they say, I read yours, I could see this. Maybe we should try this. If that's what your team does by itself, then that's good. I had the rule of we meet every day. And daily Scrum is supposed to happen every day, but this is where I was agile. every day we had a meeting, and this would be, you start with your sprint planning, and then it would be a daily scrum, and then it would be either a daily scrum or a backlog refinement session, and then another daily scrum followed with your sprint review and your retrospective. But never to have, because if you put your daily scrum in a different time, then people need to remember after everything, oh yeah, we have another meeting, or just before it, they have to come earlier. I just found consistency, even as the daily scrum says, after Scrum Guide says, don't make it complex, hold it at the same place, same time every day. There's really just, it helps so much. It will differ for teams. I found just a little bit of joining in, having your camera on, having people talk, and through people speaking, even if it's just normal stuff, you have 15 minutes. I would spend 5 minutes just talking nonsense, and it would kind of break the ice. And somebody would say, how are you going along with that piece of code? And then developers would start a conversation. And it ended up, most of the time, they said, all right, let's join for a call after the meeting. And I don't think that would have happened with just a chat. Different teams. But thank you for the question.
Thank you for your answer.
Let's see, 15. All right, so in the chat, did a stakeholder working agreement for the. I also recommend for those who ask questions just to look at the chat. Actually, for most of us, some people give really good advice and some links to share. To ask the last question, how are you successful in making people attend the daily Scrum at the same time? We struggled a lot to have even 15 minutes daily when we're present. That is a real problem. And we had a lot of momentum. We had our first sprint, well, sprint 2, sprint 3, since the meeting started, everybody pitched up. And then there was one sprint where it was only me and the one developer. And I brought that up at the sprint retrospective saying, guys, this is important. Why are we not showing up? What can we do differently? And you will handle that differently depending on what they say. The one guy answered and said he really tries, but his work finishes and he's in transport most of that time. So it's hard for him. We've had him since that retrospective, he would join while on the train. And he would kind of just say, he would answer in the chat and listen in. That would be his communication. He can't talk. But just by bringing it up and saying, we need everybody to show up. And they would kind of hold each other accountable. And more than that, another thing that a developer, because you can ask them, how do you think we can get more people to show up? How do we keep this momentum going? And they said, a few hours before the meeting, just somebody in the chat should say a message. Hey, everybody, this is the meeting coming up. Are we all ready? And then you just see a few reactions on that meeting and you kind of know, okay, they saw it. Also on my Google notifications, I set up most of the meeting invites. Not saying you should as a Scrum Master. I just, to keep momentum pushing, I add notifications. You'll get a notification 20 minutes, 2 hours, and if it's a big meeting, you'll know a day beforehand as well. So I put a lot of notifications through Google. And if your phone is linked to Google, there will be alarms who's going off. And that's at least one way that kind of helps with attendance. I hope I answered your question. But these problems you take to the retrospective and you ask your team also for insight. Are there any more questions perhaps? I follow. Okay, Adewale, just let me answer the one in the chat quickly, making it daily Scrum channel, for example. I'm going to be very honest. I just have to look at what's asynchronous. The central clock system. Based on that. Oh, okay. Yeah, we used, if I understand this correctly, it means not at the same time. Okay, so I just want to make sure if I understood this correctly. Is this about the chat saying different times, or is it having the meetings at different times?
Asynchronously may mean that everybody posts in a channel at different times, but they are posting their status update. That's at least what I understand by asynchronously, not a real-time meeting.
Okay. Yes, that is. Okay, so that would be not real-time meeting at the same time. That is actually something that should be better now, and that's kind of a little bit different. Chingu asks you to do a daily stand-up. They want a daily stand-up through the Titan bot. I think daily Scrum is something different because I, as a Scrum Master, ask you to do the daily Scrum. That means we get together, you turn your camera on, and we talk 15 minutes. Chingu asks you to give an update. And I never enforced that. It was like, if you do it, great, because I wasn't even doing it every day. And some developers outshined me by doing it every day. But I didn't ask for that. You can, however, if you really struggle that people get together and it's just different time zones and they can't meet, then yeah, before a meeting, just say, please remember to give your status update so the other members know while we're going to have the daily Scrum. We're going to have a big meeting, a review, a retrospective. What you need to say or want to say, please just give it in the chat so that we know to ask that question or to say that in the meeting. I do think you can prepare that even if some individuals can't meet. But something with this new voyage is we have Jim and all the smart people created it so that if you choose your voyage, you will actually be more grouped with people who can work at the same time. So this should be less of a problem. But I think just, as I said, before meeting, if they need to say something, they can put it in the chat. And create a specific channel or post where it's just updates for meetings. And then they know this is where they put it. Okay, Adewale, I think you had a question.
Yeah. So what I'm actually doing is to check an application that I'm able to understand time zone. So if I have different teams working across the globe, before scheduling a meeting or having a discussion, I need to know their different time zone. So I'm just checking off the internet, and I came across this application, timeanddate.com. It's actually a website. Sorry. I just wanted to know if you have a particular tool to be able to know different time zones, so there is no clash and people are able to attend. Then secondly, I don't know if we would be allowed to have some softwares like either Moral or Miro to be able to kind of allow members to slot in their comments, reactions. I don't know if we have something like that in Chingu.
All right, so this is the great advantage. And Chingu really gives you open hands. They create the team, and you as a team decide what you want to create. There is an amazing handbook, and if there's a lot to read, a lot. I promise you, if you're not sure of something, you can find information in there. And in there, you'll find all the things that they recommend about if you want to create a system for booking the meetings, we recommend this website, this website, this website. And that is there. Something you'll see referenced quite frequently is Hammer Time because it works amazing. Hammer Time, it's a copy and paste of a code, and in Discord you paste it and it reflects the same time for everybody. And there's other websites that also recommend. I can't remember the names. Perhaps Jim can put it in the chat. But there's one specifically. There's one scheduling. All right, let me just see the chat. But they actually give you a lot of the tools. So you can look at the handbook And there's a lot of information that helps you prep, especially if you can find a segment which talks about sprint 1. It tells you what you need to do in sprint 1 and how you can do it. And they say, these are the applications we recommend. So in the chat, Andres shared the Timeful link. That is something recommended by Chingu, and I've used it every time. It works very good. It works very well. It's a way you can share a link to everybody in your team, and they select what times are available for them, and they see their own location time, but you see your location time. So you'll see their availability on your time zone. So it kind of works out. There's a lot of tools. I can see you really want to get ready for this. You can read the handbook. It will help you a lot. I think, yes, reading the handbook is probably your best recommendation. And something else I just want to tell you is your first step is going to be the hardest. It's like walking on a bridge you never walked on before, a wooden bridge. You're not sure if the bridge is going to fall or not. But as you kind of take each step, you realize, no, it's fine. The structure is there. We're on Voyage 58. That means, and Jim probably knows the answer, but there's probably been like 1,000 projects that have been built. So you're getting a refined system that has thought about a lot of the problems and try to make it easier for you. Go read the handbook. If you're still unsure of something, you're more than welcome to ask Titan in Discord a question and answer. They will help you happily. If you ask a question, they'll be happy about it. All right. Then, if there's any more questions, you're more than welcome to ask it. Meeting. Okay, yes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming in. And I want to highlight Ranchi's question. Okay, wait. Perhaps there's just one important question. Okay, yes, there's one more question. How should a Scrum Master respond when leading a new team in a high-pressure environment with tight deadlines where the customer is highly demanding? With high deadlines. You see, this is the funny thing where I went pure Scrum versus real world Scrum. Because Scrum, you're not technically supposed to have a deadline because then it's not Scrum. That isn't how Scrum works. But you get clients who says, I want to have something done by X date. And that is where you have a lot of grace with everything. And something that is great about Scrum and what it teaches you, you as a Scrum Master and the product owner needs to build a relationship with the stakeholder. It's really important to build a relationship with them. And the way it works is the first time they build something, the stakeholder should be there to see what they've built. And they're going to be very demanding, saying, I want this and I want this, I want this. And you tell them, this is what we're currently putting as important. If you're saying something else is more important, what are we going to take away? Chingu doesn't simulate that yet. I'm saying yet because I still need to talk to Jim about it. We don't simulate stakeholders well yet. But trust me, working on the team is a hard part. And you're gonna have a tight deadline now. Try building a successful project in 6 weeks when you're brand new. How do you handle with the customer? You handle them very softly. There's a book. There's actually quite a lot of books I can recommend you. Oh, there's so many books. There's so much in the world out there that help you talk to the customer, that help you just relay this message of we are have confidence in us. Look at how we are building, and hopefully you don't get a too harsh of a client. Some of them will be hard, and I think honestly, if you're in a position that's in a company that's that hard and it's tight deadlines, the best thing would be to ask one of the other Scrum Masters in the team or in the organization saying, how have you found it? Because they'll know the best of the type of clients they get and in the environment that they are on. You probably have to ask yourself the question, is this where I want to grow? Is this where I want to help a team? I'm not saying it's not the place, but some environments might not be a right place for you. because you get hard places. Somebody else said earlier, the company doesn't. It was Alex. The company or the leaders on top were not very loving towards agile, because a lot of them are not. Agile takes a lot of the power away from all the companies. Agile says we're all on the same level. We treat everybody equally. The old system was I have a higher rank. You listen to what I say. So a lot of people don't like to lose that power. But Agile, I can talk a lot. I like talking, but I'll keep it short. My hope was to keep this short to have it all impactful. I wish I could help you more, but it's a journey, and the hardest part will be your first week, your first project. Trust me, you're going to grow a lot. And if you surround yourself with people who are encouraging and positive, then I know that you can make it out on the right side. So look at who you surround yourself with, and this goes for everybody. Look at who you surround yourself with. Who is your top 5? If they talk positively towards you and above you and where you are going, they encourage you, I promise you, there's not going to be an end to what's possible. But I want to say now to everybody here, thank you for joining in. It's a Saturday. I believe it will be a Saturday for all of us. So thank you for creating some time in the day. I'm excited for those whose first journey is lying ahead of them. Your first steps are scary, but it's absolutely worth it. You're going to build very quickly relationships with them. And I'm excited to look at the project showcase in the end and just hear your stories about, we learned this. This is how we grew. Because it's a journey. And it's a journey we're all on. So thank you for coming. And I'm excited to see how your journey unfolds.
Thank you, Hancke. It was a very good meeting. I think we all got a lot of that from it. And well, if you don't have any more questions about this topic or about the voyage starting, I will start closing the meeting. So, any questions about either the voyage or about this topic in specific? Okay, okay, so thank you, Hancke, again, and everybody for your time.